Welcome to the FERPA training. This training session is designed to enhance and reinforce your knowledge regarding the privacy of student information as it relates to FERPA. As an employee of East Tennessee State University, it is important for you to understand and comply with the law of FERPA. Topics covered during this training include when FERPA rights begin and end for a student, what is considered to be an education record, directory information, legitimate educational interest, exceptions under FERPA, and tips for preventing violations. Let's start by defining FERPA. FERPA is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of 1974. It is also known as the Buckley Amendment. According to the AACRAO FERPA Guide, written by the American Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers, FERPA is a federal law designed to protect the privacy of education records, to establish the right of students to inspect and review their education records, and to provide guidelines for the correction of inaccurate and misleading data through informal and formal hearings. Some key terms relating to FERPA that will be discussed throughout this presentation are student, education record, school officials, personally identifiable, directory information. The foundation of the law is that students must be permitted to inspect their own education records, and school officials cannot disclose personally identifiable information about students without their written permission, unless such action is covered by one of the exceptions under FERPA. Students who are or have been in attendance at a higher education institution are covered under FERPA. Applicants who are denied admission or who never attend are not covered under FERPA. Although applicants and prospective students technically do not fall under the law of FERPA, we can and should extend them the same rights that we do for those who are covered under the law. In other words, East Tennessee State University encourages you to protect the privacy of student records for applicants as well as attending students. FERPA rights actually begin for students when they begin attending an institution. For the university, this means a student is officially registered for at least one class and that class has started. FERPA rights continue even after the student leaves the institution. Deceased students are not covered under FERPA. We recommend that anyone requesting information on a deceased student be referred to the Office of the Registrar. There are 5 primary rights students have under FERPA. First, to inspect their education records. Second, to request an amendment to their record and a hearing if the request for amendment is unsatisfactory. Third, to file a complaint with the U.S. Department of Education if they feel their rights are being violated. Fourth, to expect that their education records will be kept confidential. And fifth, to request that the university not disclose their directory information. Education records are defined as records that are directly related to a student and are maintained by an institution. These records can be in any media form, such as handwritten, typed, microfilm, microfiche, or electronic format. Any information that can personally identify a student must be handled in a secure way. This includes any record with the student's social security number on it, including registration forms, transcripts, student information displayed on a computer screen, grades, class assignments, class rosters, student schedules, reports. Again, any item that has the student's social security or student ID on it is personally identifiable. Personally identifiable information that is not handled in a secure manner is considered to be a violation of FERPA. Now that we have discussed what it is to be considered an education record, let's review the 5 primary types of records that are not considered to be part of the student's education record. First are personal notes. Second, law enforcement unit records. Third, employment records. Fourth, medical records, and finally, alumni records. Personal notes are notes maintained by a faculty or staff member who made the notes. Personal notes may also be referred to as sole possession notes. For example, an advisor meets with a student to discuss the upcoming semester. After the student leaves the room, the advisor makes a note about what was discussed and files the note in his or her own file drawer. This is considered to be a personal note, because it was not made in the presence of others and it was filed in the advisor's own office. Therefore, the personal note is not part of the education record and is not subject to FERPA. On the other hand, notes that are made in the presence of others are considered personal notes. For example, an advisor meets with a student and takes notes during the meeting. These notes are subject to FERPA because they are made in the presence of the student and therefore are not considered personal notes. Law enforcement unit records are maintained solely for law enforcement purposes. Employment records are not considered part of the education record unless the person's employment is contingent upon being a student, such as a graduate student or a work-study student. Medical records are defined as being created by a healthcare professional and are only used for the medical or health treatment of the student. And finally, alumni records are created after the student has left the institution and therefore are not considered part of the education record. Next, we will discuss student information that can be disclosed. Information that can be released on the student includes the following: directory information that the student has given written consent to release, information needed by university officials who have a legitimate educational interest, and information needed by certain government agencies. Directory information is information that can be released to any third party without the student's written consent. Each higher education institution is allowed to define what is considered to be directory information. Directory information at ETSU includes name, address, telephone number, campus email address, field of study including majors, minors, certifications, and pre-professional areas of study, classification, and enrollment status. Participation in officially recognized activities and sports including photographs of athletes, dates of attendance including matriculation, drop, and withdrawal dates, degrees and certificates received including date awarded, awards received including Dean's List, Scholastic Honors, Departmental Honors, memberships in National Honor Societies, athletic letters, and university-funded scholarships excluding those that are need-based, and previous education institutions attended. The university maintains a number of different address and telephone types for students. 3. Residence hall, current mailing, and primary permanent are considered directory information. General requests for student addresses, in an example, requests for an address directory of current students, will be fulfilled by providing one address for each student based on availability according to the following hierarchy: residence hall, current mailing, and primary permanent. General requests for student telephone numbers will be generated in a similar fashion. All non-university contact information provided for purposes of the emergency notification system is not considered directory information. Cell phone numbers, unless provided as a residence hall, current or primary permanent telephone number, are not considered directory information. First Mate access. The First Mate system allows students to give access to various areas of their academic and financial records to parents, spouses, and others. For more information, please visit www.etsu.edu/firstmate. Now that we have discussed directory information and other circumstances and programs in which the university releases information about students, it is important to know that students under the law of FERPA do have the right to request that their directory information not be released. A FERPA hold means that the student's entire education record is considered non-directory information. When a student calls the university or a person calls on the student's behalf, the university cannot even acknowledge that the person is a student at our institution. This makes communication between the university and the student very difficult. Therefore, we strongly recommend that students do not get a FERPA hold unless it is absolutely necessary. In review, directory information can be released to any third party without the student's written consent. The only exceptions are when a student has placed a request to have his or her directory information suppressed through a FERPA hold. The university computer system will show that a student record marked as confidential when a student has a FERPA hold. In addition to having access to directory information, university faculty, staff, and other designated officials have access to non-directory information if they have a legitimate educational interest. University officials are defined as faculty, staff, and students who have a direct need to know information in order to do their jobs. Also considered to be university officials are members of the Board of Trustees, university administrators, faculty and staff under contract or appointment to the university, and temporary employees, student workers, and graduate assistants. Legitimate educational interest is defined as the need to know in order to be able to perform an administrative task as outlined in a person's official job duties, or to be able to perform a supervisory or instructional task directly related to the student's education, or to perform a service or benefit for the student such as healthcare, job placement, financial aid, etc. There are many exceptions under FERPA that allow various people and organizations to access student information without written consent. Now that we have discussed some of the exceptions under FERPA, let's talk about parents' rights and some additional ways to avoid violations under FERPA. Parents may only obtain directory information. In order to obtain non-directory information, parents must have a signed consent form from their child. There are many ways for you to prevent violations of FERPA. First, if you have access to student information through the computer system, this access does not grant unrestricted use of that information. Remember, you must need the information in order for you to do your job. Curiosity is not a valid reason to view student information. If you are ever in doubt, do not give student information out. Even though directory information can be released without the student's written consent, you are not required under the law to automatically disclose the information. Remember, you can always refer requests for student information to the Office of the Registrar. One of the most common violations under FERPA is leaving personally identifiable information in an area that is easily viewable by others. To avoid this type of violation, do not leave confidential information displayed on an unattended computer. Always cover, turn over, or put away papers that contain confidential information if you are going to step away from your desk. Also, be sure to dispose of the confidential records in a secure manner. Any paper that has a student's social security number or student ID on it should be shredded or placed in a secure recycling bin. You should never place confidential information in a recycling bin that is not secure in a hallway or office. In conclusion, we have discussed students' rights under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of 1974. We have also discussed when FERPA rights begin and end for a student, what is considered to be an education record, directory information, legitimate educational interests, exceptions under FERPA, and tips for preventing violations. For additional information regarding FERPA, including the official university policy, please visit the website at etsu.edu/reg-records-FERPA.